In this lecture, you are going to understand about a common problem which you will face when you enable two-way SSL, especially when you are using HTTPS. So if you are using HTTPS, suppose if this is a server and this is a client, what will happen when you enable two-way SSL on server? Client makes a HTTPS request. Server will ask for client certificate. Client will send its certificate. Server has to check whether this client certificate is in its trust store. Then server will send its certificate. Client has to verify whether this certificate is there in its trust store, right? So actually, client, how does it know where is certificate stored? In its key store. And server certificates also will be present in server key store. So if I want to enable two-way SSL on server side in HTTPS configuration, I need to tell about server key store, server trust store. On client side also, client key store, client trust store. Right. Now, if I am enabling HTTPS two-way SSL on my server, see here, this is a configuration. Here under TLS I have configured a trust store and key store, right? And one important thing here is there is a checkbox called as insecure. By default, it is not selected. That means insecure is equals to false. Insecure is equals to false. That means what? Secure equals to true, right? Same meaning, right? That means if this is insecure equals to false, we are telling the server validate the certificates. Validating certificate means, see actually, if the certificate is generated using key tool, the certificate will be a self-signed certificate. It will not be signed by any CA, right? So if the certificate does not have any parents, right, then the certificate is not a secured certificate, right? So server will reject it. So whenever you generate the key stores using key tool or export certificates using key tool and import certificates using key tool, these certificates generated are self-signed. So if you are generating stores using this key tool, then you will face an error when you have an insecure is equals to false. But that is default, right? So many people, without knowing this, whenever you try, you will face an error because server will reject because the certificate is not a signed certificate. It is not signed by some CA, right? That is a problem. So to actually overcome that problem, what you have to do when testing in dev environment, you have to make it as insecure equals to true. That means you are saying, hey server, just check whether the certificate is there in your trust store or not. That's all. Don't verify whether certificate is self-signed or signed by CA, right? But in dev environment that is okay, but in production environment we need to make sure that the certificate is a CA signed certificate, right? So in production we don't want insecure equals to true, we want insecure equals to false. So now I'm going to tell you how to generate a signed certificate. So let me explain you. What I want to do is, I want to generate a JKS file called as root.jks in which I'm going to generate a key pair with alias as root. And when generating a key pair, I want to say that this entry is a CA, certifying authority. So when I generate, it will have a private key as well as certificate. All all the details, right? So I want to generate. So I have created an entry for a certifying authority, right? Then what I want to do is I want to generate one more thing called as middle dot jks. Then I want to add an entry into this jks. I want to generate a key pair with alias as middle. But when I am generating this entry, I don't want to say that this entry is a certifying authority, right? Then what? For this entry, I want to generate a certificate signing request. I will generate a file called a CSR, certificate signing request file, and send it to root. Now what? I will make, I will sign this certificate signing request using this root, because root is a CA, right? He can sign. By using this entry, I will sign it. So I will be getting CSR response, certificate signing request response. Then I will apply this response. Okay, one more thing. While signing this, this root can say that I am signing this entry as a CA. So while signing, the root will say that this middle also is a certifying authority. Now I will apply this certificate signing request response to this entry. Then this entry is signed as a CA by root. Now I want to generate one server key store in which I am going to add an entry called as server with some private and public key will be generated. Now for this server alias, I want to generate one more CSR, certificate signing request, and using this certificate signing request, I will make this middle to sign, okay, CS request response. So who is signing this certificate signing request? Middle, because middle is made as a CA by root. Then I will apply this response onto server. So that means this server entry will have a certificate which is signed by middle, and middle certificate is signed by root. So we have a hierarchy, right? Similarly, I will generate a client key store where I will generate an alias called as client. Again here I am going to generate a CSR, certificate signing request, and get this signed by middle. That means client also will have a certificate which is signed by middle. So then what I am going to do, I am going to create one more server trust store, and then in that what I will do, first of all, I will export the server certificate, client certificate, root certificate, middle certificate. I will export all the certificates. So in the server trust store, I will add a root certificate, I will import, and middle certificate I will import, and then in server trust store I need to add client certificate. And then finally what I will do, I will create a client trust store. In that client trust store, I will add root certificate, middle certificate, and server certificate, right? Then I am going to use this server trust store, client trust store, server key store, client key store, and then I will add them into my SRC main resources and configure client and server here. Actually, in earlier lecture, I have already used the JKS files which has been generated in this way. So while showing a demo, I didn't get an error even though here this insecure equals to false. Right? Now I'm going to show you how I generated them. So in this case, I'm going to use a tool called as Key Store Explorer. Okay. So I have actually installed a tool called as Key Store Explorer and I am opening it. So how to install that Key Store Explorer? What you can do, you can just go to Google and Google for Key Store Explorer download, and you can take the first link. Here you will get this download link for various operating systems. You just have to take defaults and install it. So I have already installed this. So here is a UI coming in. Now in the UI I'll go and create a new a JKS file, and I want to name this JKS file as root. So I'm pressing save. So it's asking for store password. I'll give password as password and again password. So it is asking me a name. I'm storing it under this folder. I'll give the name as root.jks. I created an empty JKS file. Now I want to generate a key pair in this JKS file. I'll right click and click on generate key pair. I'll take the default algorithm RSA. Okay. It is generating a key pair. Then here it is asking me some details about the name. I'll click on this icon and give some name. Name as root. Organization unit, I'll just give something like root or OU, and organization root org, and locality name I'll give my locality Bangalore BLR. State name I can give anything like KA. Country is India IN. Okay, so I gave these details about the root, and I'll click on add extensions. I want to say that this entry is a CA certificate. This entry is for a CA. So I clicked on add extensions, and here I can click on plus. Here under basic constraints, I'll select it. Here I am selecting a checkbox. Subject is a CA. That means I am saying that whatever entry I am adding here in this JKS file is a CA. Okay. Okay. So what is the alias it is asking? I want to give root as a alias, and it is asking the alias password, entry password. So I'll give it as again password. Okay, so one entry is automatically generated in root.jks. So this is the CA. Then I'll generate a new file again, .jks file. And here I'll save it. It is asking me for password, store password. I'll give password, and it will ask me the name. I'll write middle.jks. Here I want to generate one key value pair again. Right click, generate key pair. I'll take the default, and now it is generating key pair. I need to give some details about the name. Here I'll give common name as middle, organization as middle OU, org as middle org, some name, locality I'll give BLR, something like state is Karnataka, KA, IN India. Okay. Now I am not making this entry as a CA earlier. So here remember I am not adding an extension, and I am not saying this middle as a CA. I'll just say okay. Now I'll give the alias as middle, and it's asking the alias password. I'll give password password. Okay, then what I want is I want this certificate of middle to be signed by root. So what I'll do is I'll right click here, generate a CSR, certificate signing request, where it is asking me for the location. By default it is taken as the same folder. Middle.csr file will be generated. So here you can see middle.csr is generated. It is a certificate signing request. Now using this CSR, I want to sign it. So I'll go to root.jks, right click on this link, on this alias, and here sign the CSR. So I'm making a root to sign. What is the file name? I'll select this middle.csr. I want to sign it. Right. So now while signing, I want to make this middle as a CA. So I'll click on add extensions. Again, I'll click on plus. I'll select basic constraints and subject is a CA. So here root is signing middle as a CA. Okay. Okay. So here this will generate a CA reply file P7R, a file with extension P7R. So signing is successful, and if you see here, I'll be getting middle.p7r. It is a certificate request response file. Then what I need to do is I need to go to middle.jks, select middle and right click it, import a CA reply from a file. Okay, which file? From this middle certificate request response. So that's all. CA reply is imported. Right? Now, if I right click on it and export certificate chain, let us see, it will be exported to middle.cer. Okay, I'll take defaults and click on export. Here I should see middle.cer. Here you can see middle.cer. This is secured certificate, and you can see here it is middle, and here if I see details, issuer who is this? Root is the issuer for this certificate. Then I am going to create one more JKS file. One more JKS file. I'll create new JKS. I'll make it as, I'll save it. I'll give password, store password as password. And then I'll give the name as server key store.jks. Okay. Now I need to add a key pair for server. Okay, it's generating a key pair. I have to click on this and give name. Name is, I'll say server organization unit, server org. Locality, I'll give some values like BLR, KA, IN. Okay, I'm not adding extension. This is not a CA entry. So that's all. Alias, I'll give it as server. Okay, again it's asking me for password, alias password. Okay, so now again I want server entry to be signed by middle. So I'll right click, generate a CSR again, certificate signing request. So the file will be generated server.csr. Then I want that to be signed by middle. I'll right click on middle, sign CSR. Now I'll select middle.csr. Right. So now here I will add extension, click on plus. Then I want to give subject alternate name. I'm not making this, I'm not signing server as a CA. I'm just giving an alternative name where I can give, click on plus. I'll give DNS name. Normally we give DNS name. You can give your domain name. I'll give right now localhost. Okay. So CA reply file already exists. Hey, sorry. What is this? Cancel. Oh, okay. Cancel it. Right click. Sign. I think I selected a different file. Sign what? Server.csr. I think I selected middle.csr earlier. Server.csr I want to sign. Then here I'll click on extension again. Click on plus. Now instead of basic, I'll give alternate name, and then again I'll give DNS name as my server DNS name. Here I'll give localhost. Okay. So server.p7r is generated. Certificate request response for server is generated. Now I will import that response. Import CA reply from a file, and here I'll select this. It is imported. So server certificate is signed by middle. Now I'll right click and I'll export certificate chain. So it will generate server.cer. Okay. Now if you go and open that server certificate, here in certification path, issuer is middle, right? Okay. Here it is saying issuer certificate could not be found. Actually, while I am opening this server certificate, okay, if I double click on it, here you can see the certificates. Here you can see server is issued by middle, middle is issued by root, and root is a CA. So here you can see in this viewer, right? Okay, so even if you see here also, if I right click on server and view details about certificate chain details, you can see the certificate chain. Server, on top of it you can see middle, on top of it you can see root. So this is how you can make a certificate signed by a certifying authority, right? So you have to do like this. Now what I can do is I'll create a new trust store again for server JKS file. I'll save it right now. It will ask for store password. I'll give password and password. I will save it as server trust store .jks. Okay. Now I want to import all the certificates: root certificate, middle certificate, and all. Where is security certificates? Yeah, I have for server. I have for middle. I think I didn't export for root. Let me export the one for root certificate also. I'll right click, export certificate chain, entire chain only, root.cer. Okay, then what, I'll go here to server trustor, I'll import trusted certificate. So here I'll first select root certificate and I want to import it with an alias root. I'll take the default. Okay, then I'll import middle. So this is a middle certificate. I want to import it as alias middle only. Then in server trustor, actually I need to import client certificate. So I'm not going to show you. Just like how I generated a server certificate, I generated server keystore.jks, right? You can also create client keystore.jks and export client certificate, just like how I have done for server, and then import client certificate into server trustor. So in this way, just like how I have shown you how to create a server certificate, server trustor, similarly you need to create client keystore, client trustor. In client trustor, you need to import again root certificate, middle certificate and server certificate. Alright. Then once you generate all the 4 JKS files, what you can do is you can keep all of your JKS files under src main resources, and then for your HTTP listener, go to TLS, you can configure the paths. Now you don't need to select insecure because the certificates are signed certificates, so it will work, right? So that's about how to actually generate signed certificates, how to actually create a entry and make the entry as a CA, and how can you use that entry root in this case to sign middle, and root has made middle as a CA again. Then I used middle to sign server certificate, right? So hope you understood. So that's what I want to tell about how to actually enable HTTPS using one-way and two-way SSL. So in next video, we are going to see some best practices on where to store certificates, and again how to secure our network communication using VPCs and VPNs, etc.